The final perspective we want to take a look at when we're evaluating the hope and the critique of this democratizing potential of the internet is taking a look at us, at democracy and the internet in the United States. In order to do that, we want to start by looking at some basic data, looking at some Pew data. The Pew Internet and American Life Project is by far the best source of internet related research that's being done in the United States. They're constantly coming out with great studies showing everything from web access to who's using it, how they're using it, impact on social interaction, social media, as well as our political use of the internet and the impact of the internet on political life. So let's start there. The most important place to start would be taking a look at internet access. As you can see here, starting in 1995, when sort of those early web browsers start to expand the rate of internet adoption around the country, the use of the internet adoption around the world, we see an incredible growth all the way up to what we have at 85%. 85% of Americans today have internet access, use the internet daily, and this is huge. It's important to note that it is not universal, right? 15% of Americans do not use it. The majority of those who do not use it have been found to be those that are much older Americans who haven't used it and don't necessarily feel the need to learn about or use the internet. But there are a number of people that are younger that also have not used it, either by choice or because they haven't had access to it. When we break down in a little bit more detail the demographics of internet users in the United States, a few things stand out. That 85% is very much typical of men and women, but you start to see great disparities, especially when you talk about age. If you look at those Americans under 30, 98% of those people are internet users on a regular basis. 92% of Americans under 50 are internet users, which suggests that the numbers of internet users are going to continue to grow as those people become the majority or the entirety of the American population. Education really matters as well, and household income, it really matters as well. 94% of households making over $50,000 are internet users and internet access. So this is really a big deal. If we expect the internet to have a democratizing effect, we need it to actually be available to as many people as possible. And what we're seeing is that the digital divide, the difference between those who have the internet and those who do not, is growing much smaller. The big issue today is the difference between those who have high-speed internet and low speed, or that old dial-up internet. And as you can see, in terms of those people who have access to the internet at home, 70% of Americans have this. Obviously, 15% of Americans have access somewhere else that they're gaining regularly through school, through their workplace. Only 3% of Americans' home internet access is dial-up, but those 3%, the majority of those 3% are unable to get broadband internet as it currently is offered. That hopefully will be something that will be addressed over the next few years, but is an important thing to note. If you want to use YouTube, if you want to use anything that has a lot of data, dial-up internet is essentially worthless. And if you think about the impact that has on the democratic discourse or the democratizing potential of the internet, it really matters. What we use the internet today for is much more interactive, much more multimedia than what it was before. We're not just posting on listservs. We are watching video, we are commenting on them, we are uploading our own messages, and we're creating blogs and podcasts and everything in between. So this access is really an important thing to look at as we move forward. When you bring all these things together, we see that this Pew data really corresponds very well with one of the important readings that you read for this module, the Schlossman, Verba, and Brady piece, The Weapon of the Strong. And while that was one of the most important early studies of the democratizing effect of the internet on American politics, one of the notable findings of that study was that it really didn't have the democratizing effect that those cyber utopians hoped that it would. The most important difference that it had was to potentially increased the political involvement of younger Americans, that it helped to alleviate some of the marginalization of young Americans in the political process. But it really did very little to impact the disparity between those on the lower socioeconomic spectrum and those on the higher ends. That the internet has really was shown in that study to do very little to overcome the impact of class when it comes to political participation, and that's a really important piece. Finally, if we want to think about all of these things together and where we're going in the future, we can ask ourselves the simple question: what can be done to maximize the democratizing potential of the internet? By governments? By corporations? By Google, Facebook, social media? And by us, right? If the democratizing potential is supposed to increase the role or the ability that all citizens have to participate actively in government, we know, if we're taking any look at this, any careful consideration of this, that the internet itself will not do it. New technology itself will not do it. It will be a very people-powered process. One of the pieces that we're going to focus on down the road is that while the United States is not China, and we are not Iran, and we are not Egypt in terms of trying to censor information and limit internet access, there's no doubt that the United States and the power of the state is very, very strong when it comes to what we do online. Recently, we have found out about a number of actions taken by the NSA, including the PRISM program, that has collected our information, everything from cell phone use to social media to our emails, and whether they are collecting so-called metadata, the sort of general outlines of what we do, or they're collecting actual content. There's no doubt that the American government is collecting massive, massive amounts of information and should at least bring into question the power of the state in the United States. We do not have the Great Firewall of China, but we definitely have a very, very powerful and very active American government when it comes to monitoring what we do online and potentially using that to both go after terrorist or illegal activity, but potentially to invade privacy. And these are the questions that will be grappled with in our society and in our courts over the next several years. And as we start to stabilize this new political communication order that's developing, I think that these are the real questions that we will need to address. And this democratizing potential is something that will remain in doubt until we figure out exactly the role of governments, the role of citizens, the role of corporations, and how this relationship will be fixed for the foreseeable future.